What up? Here's the score of the game. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Can't believe what we just saw. That is far and away the best first half of Buckeye football, best half of Buckeye football I've ever seen. And I said last Saturday night after the Purdue win, they got to come out and improve on that game. And if they stomp Michigan State, then things are going to get interesting. Well, things have gotten interesting as Ohio State dismantles Michigan State 56-7 in the final home game at the Shoe for the 2021 season. And in what will be my final post-game show of the year on this channel. I am unfortunately going to be unable to do the post-game show after the Michigan game, but we'll have a good time here for the next 45 minutes to an hour or so, talking about the win, talking about the season, and anything else y'all want to talk about. Because my God, that was hilarious. Incredible. My God, well, damn, Harbaugh's picking some mean. Look at that score. Oh my God. No one saw that coming. The fact that it was 49-0 at halftime, let alone the fact that it was 42-0 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter, just came to show like OSU wasn't messing around. They weren't messing around. They just wanted to show Michigan what they're made of and scare the daylights out of them going into Ann Arbor next weekend. An absolute destruction of a game. Incredible win. Hello, everyone. Ori Benatar here for the Ohio State Voice of College Football channel. Make sure to sub to this channel. You can catch Mark doing his OSU interviews weekly. You can go check out Mark's channel as well. Just search Voice of College Football on YouTube, and you can follow it. Keep subbing to that channel. I mean, the big takeaway from this game, for me, the two biggest things, as Google statistics are not accurate because supposedly CJ Stroud only threw 4 touchdown passes when he in fact threw 6. So I'll pull ESPN Gamecast up here just to get the statistics in front of me. The two big takeaways for me, CJ Stroud is playing the best we've seen him play. He had one of the best games the QB's had at Ohio State against a top 10 Big Ten opponent. I mean, this might be the best win in OSU, one of the best wins in OSU history against a top 10 conference opponent ever. Just from domination. The defense didn't let up. They only gave up a touchdown. The first half was just not even close. It wasn't even close. Howdy, Roger. Yeah, Troy, they left no doubt. Hey, when Ryan Day takes the foot off the gas second half, he said he would hang 100 on TTUN, and I don't think he will. Yeah, I don't think we can take that so literally. Teams don't score 100 points. And at the same time, he needs to think about injuries, and he also needs to think about stamina and whatnot, mainly injuries. You're up 42-0 or 49-0 against Michigan State, and you're playing Michigan the following week and the Big Ten Championship. I'm not keeping CJ Stroud in that game for all 60 minutes. I'm taking him out by middle third quarter, which is kind of what happened. You can take your foot off the gas. I have no problem with that. Give the guys some rest. Get them ready for the bigger games. Michigan is the next big game, of course, as a rivalry game. OSU could be 0-10, and that game is still a big deal. And then you would think that they can get to the Big Ten Championship with a victory over. They'll get to the Big Ten Championship if they beat Michigan. I don't know if there's a scenario where they lose and they still win the conference and still win the division title. I think it'd probably have to be if Michigan were to lose today to Maryland, and then Ohio State were to. And even if I think OSU loses, that might be the scenario where they still make it. We'd have to break that down. How about that? D today was a little worried about MSU's O, but damn. I know. Michigan State couldn't do anything. That is the literal perfect example of a real life scenario where you are watching someone play Madden or NCAA football and putting it on ultra beginner. Like they don't even have that level of easiness in a video game. When you score a touchdown every drive and then your defense just gets 3 and outs the whole time. It's not like OSU needed to even have a takeaway because Michigan State just couldn't move the ball. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't cover any of the wide receivers. Yeah, that Buckeye mentality. Yeah, everything. Give Mel Tucker another race. Yeah, Mel Tucker's getting what, a $95 million extension or something like that to lose to Ohio State by 50. Impressive stuff. Impressive stuff. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job with the Spartans. You can't knock him. He just played the best team in the conference. Ooh, ESPN changed their little scoreboard thing here. I like it. It's a little slicker. But I'm curious if we're looking at maybe the best OSU offense ever. Today was certainly one of the best OSU offensive performances we've ever seen in a single half. I mean, CJ Stroud threw 6 touchdowns. Just CJ Stroud doubled his touchdowns compared to his incompletions. He had 3 incompletions and 6 touchdown passes on 432 passing yards. That's unbelievable. And Patrick Mahomes was impressed. This is a performance that maybe gets CJ Stroud just into the Heisman conversation. I don't know. He certainly is looking down the path of being the best player in college football for this weekend in terms of a performance. He was incredible. So was Chris Olave. That catch that Olave made where the ball was like flying in the air and he didn't know where to look and he was just tracking, and then he just did like one of these things and got the foot in. Amazing. That's the kind of catch that NFL scouts will look at and be like, right there, top 15 pick in the draft. Garrett Wilson has the moves. Smith-Njigba continues to perform. Big touchdown for Julian Fleming. Love that Master T got a good farewell in Columbus, scoring a touchdown and getting a lot of carries. Love to see that. Travion had 63 yards. Mayan Williams got a touchdown. Like everything was just beautiful from a Buckeye perspective. If DTUN loses this year, do you think Harbaugh is done yet? Nah, I think Harbaugh stays. I mean, Michigan's had essentially its best season ever under Jim Harbaugh. I don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to leave after this year. Score 100 next week. Well, I don't think they'll get 100, but we'll see. If they can keep, they've just been building and building, continuing to build every Big Ten game, week in and week out. And this was their best game. And they needed to show up and beat a team this good. And we'll get to what this means potentially for a potential ranking and whatnot, because we're getting closer to that playoff being decided. Ryan Day dyeing his beard. Maybe. Bearded Monsters, no joke. I want to see that against Georgia's defense. I mean, legitimately, the only challenge at this point you could say for OSU's offense would be Georgia's defense. You could legitimately make that case. The OSU offense is proving time and time again that they are far and away the best offense in the country. This is the best 3 wide receiver trio that OSU has ever had with Olave, Wilson, and Smith-Njigba. All 3 guys are incredible. Chris Olave, hats off to him. The most receiving touchdowns for any Buckeye receiver ever. Beat David Boston's record today. This is one of the best OSU offenses that I've seen. It's not my favorite OSU offense. I obviously will have a little more nostalgia towards the 2006 team, back when they had Troy Smith and Ted Ginn Jr., a young Beanie Wells. Those are my favorite teams. Ted Ginn is probably my favorite Buckeye player ever. Dave, best coach in college football, has overcome young team and many other issues. The Buckeyes are in a great position for years to come. Great position, yeah. You think they're good now. Next year, you'd think they'd be even better because they're going to keep CJ Stroud. Smith-Njigba is going to still be there. They're just going to be better next year. You'll still have Travion Henderson, too. Much of a drubbing this was. Tucker took a team from a real bad to respectable in 2 years. Hope he keeps them good. Oh, absolutely. It's great to see the Big Ten competitive. It just helps to sort of relieve the whole SEC fanboyness of the playoff committee, of different networks and whatnot. Because Big Ten fans are going to look at today's games and be like, okay, what did we have here? Oh, look, Ohio State beat 7th-ranked Michigan State by freaking 49 points. What's going on for the other teams? Oh, Texas A&M. Who did they beat by 49? Oh, they beat Prairie View A&M. Oh, look at Mississippi State. They won by 45. Who did they play? Tennessee State. Oh, number 1 Georgia, the best team in college football. Oh, who did they play here? Charleston Southern, and won by 49 points. Ohio State beat a top 10 conference opponent who was looking to move its way into the playoff conversation throughout the first half of the season. They beat them by 49 points. Amazing. Mullet made an appearance. Lave loves to play against the team. Yeah. Have to see how that goes. Yeah, nice to see Quinn Ewers fear the mullet. Got to fear the mullet. Bucks should be 1 or 2. The SEC favoritism with ESPN CFP has a huge amount of sports jerseys sitting on the store hangers. Everyone into losing money lately. Tennessee State head coach is Eddie George. Really? I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's cool. I mean, I love Eddie George, of course. It's too bad that they lost today. 5-5, Tennessee State. You know what? It's not too bad. SEC played the little sister. Yeah, what a joke. It is annoying to see the SEC schedule their FCS games so late in the season. You're a week away from Thanksgiving. Rivalry week is next weekend, and they basically have these pick-me-up freaking appetizer games to just get them ready for the legitimate ones. But fair play. Alabama's playing Arkansas right now. At least they're playing somebody competitive in this week, which years past we've seen Alabama play freaking like Mercer, like Florida A&M in these games, and then they go and play Auburn. At least Bama's playing Arkansas and has a competitive game. But this leaves the interesting question. Obviously, a lot is going to be determined for the playoff rankings on Tuesday with what happens to Oregon tonight in their big game against Utah. It's going to be a really big game for the Ducks. But because the committee is so inconsistent on head-to-head, you would think that maybe there's a chance, even if Oregon were to beat Utah in a good performance, that Ohio State could jump the Ducks despite losing to them and be number 3, assuming Alabama beats Arkansas. Because Ohio State just that is one of the best wins this season. You could argue that Oregon beating OSU and Columbus is the best win in college football this season, and you could also make a case for OSU beating Michigan State the way they did as being one of the best wins of the season. It's close. You'd still probably think to yourself Oregon over OSU, but the OSU team from week 2 is miles different to the OSU team now here in week 11, week 12, whatever it is. They've grown, they've matured, they got that out of their system, and they're playing phenomenal football. Week in and week out, they've just been getting better and better. CJ Stroud throws absolute dimes. The wide receivers are incredible. The running backs are contributing too, but the running backs haven't needed to contribute nearly as much when the receivers are so good, and CJ Stroud is just hitting pass after pass. He's just throwing dimes, man. Go Arkansas, hope the Hogs eat. Yeah, I mean, if Arkansas beats Alabama, that probably keeps Alabama out of the equation. But you never know. You never know with the CFP. You never know because of the SEC. Hell, if Alabama lost today, but then they beat Georgia in the SEC championship, then Alabama might still make it because they could get the win over Georgia, which would then be considered the best win of the regular season. Oregon will probably play Utah twice. That's a Pac-12 championship preview tonight. That's a big game. Since Sparty has beat Michigan last couple of years, are they still little brother? I don't know. At least play Big Ten games, non-conference games. Big Ten is great. Big Ten's had some really good teams this year, and Ohio State has performed really well against them. Ryan Day has the exact same record as Urban Meyer in his first 35 career games with OSU, and he still has not lost a conference game. Ryan Day's never lost to a conference opponent, and this is his 3rd year coaching Ohio State. And he'll keep that streak going into 2022 if Ohio State beats Michigan next week and wins the Big Ten championship 2 weeks after that, or 1 week after that. Oh, that was Bama last week? Yeah, that was Poor Nebraska. Yeah, poor Nebraska. What else is happening in the Big Ten today? I want to get a little bit of a look here. It's just amazing that since that Oregon loss, it's just been a completely different story. I'd argue that the first 3-4 weeks of the season is where things got a little rough. Then OSU started looking like themselves again, had a little bit of the hiccup against Nebraska, and then the last 2 weeks against Purdue and Michigan State, it's just been joyous. This is a game where I don't see any reason to think of anything to complain about. This is as close to a perfect football game as Ohio State has played in a long time. In a very long time. Because they shut them out in the first, 3 quarters or something. And had scored 7 touchdowns. Let's see the rest of the Big Ten scores. So Illinois is losing to Iowa by 4. Michigan, Maryland just started. Nebraska's already losing to Wisconsin. Minnesota, Indiana. Indiana was ranked 17th in the preseason poll. They are 2-8 with an 0-7 conference record. Just goes to show that the early rankings don't always mean everything. Purdue beat Northwestern and Penn State shut out Rutgers. Okay. Indiana, man. What a disappointing season for the Hoosiers. Terrible. Think Ryan Day should look for a DC in the offseason? I don't know. I'm not sure about that. We'll see. The defense has improved significantly. There's a night and day difference between the defense we saw tonight compared to what we saw in week 1, week 2. They're just getting better and better. Georgia's getting better too, but it's not like Georgia had looked like a really mediocre to learning football team in the very early weeks of the season. They've always just looked as dominant as they have every single day, every single week. So Ohio State has showed probably the most improvement of like the big teams this year, of like the teams that you think are going to win the national championship. And one thing that is a little bit intimidating going into the rankings on Tuesday is because of the way Ohio State's been playing recently and how much they're destroying conference opposition. Does that make the Oregon win that much better? I think for the committee, they're going to look at it and see, yeah, it does. Oregon beat this Ohio State team in Columbus. So that to me is something that the committee might take into consideration, and partially why Oregon will always be ahead of Ohio State no matter what the Buckeyes can do, because of the whole head-to-head thing. But at the same time, Oregon was playing a vastly different football team. Ohio State is playing like the second best team in the country right now. Are they the second best team overall in the country? Maybe. You could say Alabama is. You could maybe say Oregon. I don't think Oregon is. I don't think Oregon's a top 4 team personally. I maybe would put them at number 4. I still think you need to give Cincinnati some just due. But right now, Ohio State is playing as the second best team in the United States in college football. Georgia's the best. Ohio State's the second best, based on just the way they're playing. Michigan State wins versus the Rodents of Ann Arbor. Buckeyes over MSU. Yeah, talk about a difference. Michigan State beat Michigan, and their running back had 5 touchdowns. They won the game by 4, and then they go ahead and lose to OSU by 49. There's talent on that D, very young for the most part. The more they play, the better they're getting. Exactly. Wish we held them from getting that 1 touchdown. Yeah, it is what it is. A shutout's always nicer, but it's okay. 7 points is still pretty freaking good. I'll say this, though. Kyle McCord isn't ready to step in for Stroud if needed. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have the Cardell Jones type story in the very unfortunate event. Hopefully it doesn't happen, and I don't think it will, but you hope it doesn't, that CJ Stroud potentially could get injured, and then you have to bring on Kyle McCord or Quinn Ewers to play quarterback. It's not like the Cardell Jones situation. Cardell Jones was pretty ready for that. The expectations weren't high for him anyway during that national championship run, but you know what the story, you know what the papers, you know what the sports media sites would say if CJ Stroud were to get hurt and Kyle McCord were to lead OSU to any type of insane success. They would basically say this is how OSU wins national championships. Just get the number 1 QB injured, maybe also get the second string injured, and let the third string take care of business. But that's obviously an outlandish sort of prediction. We can't predict who's going to get injured or not. CJ Stroud has had no reason to worry about getting injured. Nobody is pressuring him. He's got the time in the world to throw. He just throws absolute dots. Heisman? I don't know. The Heisman race is really close. It's not like anyone is really running away with it. CJ Stroud definitely made his case to potentially get into the finalists for the Heisman Trophy this year. You know, last year, Devontae Smith kind of ran away with it because he was having such a historic season for a wide receiver. Whereas this year, you're just not really seeing anybody have that kind of crazy college football season, stealing all the headlines as an individual player. Kenneth Walker's Heisman candidacy is good, but a game like this against OSU doesn't help his case. He really didn't do anything. What did he have? What were Kenneth Walker's stats in this game? Probably had like 20 rushing yards or something very low. Yeah, he had 25 rushing yards and 6 carries. So, but I definitely think that CJ Stroud is in the conversation. You're looking at probably the best performance this weekend in college football, unless somebody goes ballistic this afternoon or this evening. I don't know. The Heisman race is really exciting, but I do think you have to, from OSU, I think you have to give CJ Stroud and one of the wide receivers some consideration. It depends on what the statistics are for the wide receivers once the Big Ten championship happens. But any one of those 3 wide receivers, you're most likely looking at probably Olave or Wilson. I don't know about Smith and Jigba yet, but CJ Stroud and Olave or Wilson is potentially a finalist for the Heisman. Maybe. I don't think the receivers are finalists, but I think CJ Stroud can get there. I'll grow a mullet if Ewers won the national championship. Good luck with that. Damn, out of all the QBs we had who didn't win the Heisman and the Martin kid. Can we take Walker out of the Heisman talk? Yeah, we probably can. I think Kenneth Walker's out of the Heisman conversation, I would say. I mean, let's see what the Heisman odds are now. My guess is this is before today's games. Let's see. So this is according to Vegas Insider. That was posted in okay, odds win the Heisman. When was this posted? This was updated on Tuesday. So pre this week, Vegas Insider's top 3 Heisman finalists from 1 to 3 are Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Kenneth Walker. Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett round out the top 5. Travion Henderson is within the top 10. No Ohio State wide receiver is within those top odds. But Vegas Insider has Bryce Young as the favorite, which I don't really get. I need to see his stats. Bryce Young's a good player, but is he really the best player in college football this year? Maybe. Notre Dame is wiping the floor with Georgia Tech. Feels bad. Let's see Bryce Young's statistics. Let's see what Bryce Young's been up to this year. Fair play, 3,000 passing yards, 33 touchdowns to 3 picks. He's got a 71 completion percentage. What's his rushing yards? He's not a runner, he's a thrower. 3,000 passing yards for 33 touchdowns for Bryce Young. Where's CJ Stroud? I'm not sure if the statistics are going to be added up from today's game too on ESPN, but let's see. So the statistics that ESPN has is CJ Stroud having 3,000 passing yards for 30 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I'm not sure if that adds in the Michigan State game. If it doesn't add in the Michigan State game, then he's got like 3,400 passing yards and 36 touchdown passes. So it's pretty close. It might be between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. This is why I hate sports gambling, how easy it would be to pay MSU corners to slow down a bit. They know they're not getting drafted. It looked that bad to me. Yeah, I don't gamble. It's too risky. I'm also just not good at predictions. That was before this game? Okay, it was before this game. Stats don't matter if they don't beat Georgia? No, of course. From a Heisman perspective, stats matter. From a team winning perspective, no, stats are not the full tale, of course. Walker, 6 carries, 25. What a Heisman performance. Yeah, so if those stats aren't including today's game, then CJ Stroud has 3,400 passing yards and 36 touchdown passes. That is very impressive. And we'll see what Bryce Young does today. But if Bryce Young doesn't go off, then CJ Stroud might be the Heisman favorite. It's very possible. That'd be nuts if CJ Stroud were to win the Heisman this year. Everybody thought, he's a good quarterback. He's got a lot of talent. It's more of a preparation sort of thing for this season. Yeah, Ohio State is going to be contending for a national championship this year, but maybe CJ Stroud learns a little bit. And that's kind of what the thought process was through the first 3 weeks. You saw him struggling a little bit. You saw him being a little indecisive, wasn't making all his throws. And you see the improvements he's made, and you have to give him credit, a ton of credit. And the fact that he is now in the conversation, maybe to win the Heisman Trophy, unbelievable. What a story that would be. Of course, an OSU player hasn't won the Heisman since Troy Smith. So it would be quite a celebration for the Buckeyes if CJ Stroud were to win the Heisman this year. Yeah, CJ's getting better. The team is getting better. Everything is just coming up Millhouse for the Ohio State Buckeyes right now. And I personally think they should be ahead of Oregon just because of the way they performed. We'll see, though. If Oregon were to dismantle Utah, then fine. Keep Oregon ahead of OSU if you want. But OSU's better than Oregon right now. The way those two teams are playing currently, Ohio State is a much better football team right now than Oregon. I think OSU's a better football team than Alabama. So I still don't think we've seen the best of CJ yet either. Oh, yeah, for sure. Imagine he wins the Heisman this year and then he gets better next year, wins the Heisman again, a la Archie Griffin. Common Core disappointed. I'm concerned we don't have a good backup. Again, I don't think it's worthwhile judging a backup QB coming into a game where they're up by 40 points or something. Foot off the gas a little bit, put him in a high pressure situation and see kind of what he does. But I understand the other argument of, well, we saw Cardell step in a high pressure situation after having not played the whole season, and he obviously performed. So I get the concern that McCord might not be the decent backup quarterback because he didn't play that well today, but This was a game where Ohio State didn't need to try in the second half. They got everything out in the first half, and then the second half was just don't get injured. Got to switch watching Arkansas. All right, Roger. Enjoy watching the game. Enjoy the game. We'll see if the Razorbacks can come away with the win. That would be huge. If the Razorbacks beat Alabama, that's huge not just for OSU, that's huge for Cincinnati, because then that puts Cincinnati in the conversation. But it would be interesting if we end up with a playoff that Ohio State is forced to play Georgia in the semi instead of the final. If Ohio State's 4th and Georgia's 1, or 2 and 3, of course. So, because I think it would be fair to say that most people would probably want a Georgia-Ohio State national championship. The best offense against the best defense. I think it's natural that people would want to see a game like that for all the marbles for the title, rather than it be a semifinal. Because there could be a point in any sports tournament where you see a final caliber match happening in an earlier round of a knockout. Like when you see in March Madness, like 2 number 1 seeds playing in a semi, and then the other Final Four semifinal is between like an 8 seed and an 11 seed. And you're like, well, this 1v1 really should have been the championship. This is kind of the championship per se. If OSU wins out, they will be a 2 or 3. If Oregon wins out, they will be a 2 or 3. Think if Bama loses in the SEC, hopefully they can have that rematch. Hopefully. If that path is what happens, Troy, assuming everything just keeps going as planned, then the playoff will be, assuming Bama loses to Georgia, I'd say they would put Georgia 1, Oregon 2, OSU 3, Bama 4. Unless Bama got dismantled. But even if they do get dismantled, I think they still put a 2-loss Alabama team in over an undefeated Cincinnati, sadly. You just know the committee, loves Alabama. You know that they appreciate how good they are. You know they appreciate everything they've done and whatever. Even though they lost to Texas A&M earlier in the season, and Texas A&M 7-3, they're just not going to give any respect to Cincinnati. And if I'm a Cincinnati fan and I see Alabama have 2 losses by the end of the year and still get in the playoff as a 4 seed, setting up a Bama-Georgia semifinal, I'd be fuming after everything Cincinnati's done this year. But Cincinnati could just lose in the next 3 weeks, and that's it. Their season's over. So, hate week starts now. Yep. Hate week starts now. Oh, what a fun time it'll be in Columbus, Ohio for hate week. Everyone's going to enjoy Thanksgiving. They're going to draw their X's instead of their M's. And then people that have no idea about this rivalry, which, yes, there are people that don't know about Ohio State-Michigan football rivalry or think that it's stupid, people who live in Columbus. I know those types of people, and that's okay. They see that, and they're like, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you drawing an M? Because it's hate week. It's Michigan week. We hate them. That team up north, you don't write the letter M for Thanksgiving week. It's just a law. So, lose 2 times and Bama better be out. They better be. They better be out if they lose 2 times, especially if Cincinnati's undefeated. Because if Cincinnati weren't undefeated and Alabama were to lose to Georgia in the SEC title and have 2 losses, who would you put in? Because Michigan State now has 2 losses. Assuming OSU beats Michigan next week, there's another 2-loss team in Michigan. Does that leave the... Oh, no. Does that leave the door open for Notre Dame? Are we going to see Notre Dame in the playoff again? Because I don't think anybody wants that. I don't even think Notre Dame wants that. Notre Dame fans will probably be like, oh, wow, we snuck into the playoff. Cool. Who we playing? Georgia. Okay, let's lose by 60 and not win another playoff game. I would happily take Alabama making the playoff over Notre Dame. I don't want to see Notre Dame in there again because they're always a waste of a spot. They have been every time they've been in the playoff. I don't want to see Notre Dame. I'll take Alabama. I'll happily watch Georgia-Alabama be a competitive game rather than see Georgia dismantle Notre Dame. I'm sorry. Next year will be a better indicator of NFL projected success when NPF and Munford leave and they're being inexperienced and considers pressure in cloudy pockets. Other QB could do the same. Yeah, next year will be good for NFL projected stuff, especially for Stroud and Smith and Jigba. Don't give a damn. Yeah, we don't give a damn about that whole state. Imagine OSU does this to Michigan next week. My goodness gracious. That'd be ridiculous. And let alone, this is probably going to be one of the more hyped about hate weeks for Ohio State fans because of the fact that this game didn't happen last year. And Columbus, that December 12th evening, was set to have a mega sports day. That day was set up to be OSU Michigan at the Shoe, albeit in an empty horseshoe or with very little fans. And then that evening was going to be the MLS Cup final between the Columbus Crew and the Seattle Sounders. The MLS Cup final happened. Columbus ended up winning, but we all know that the game was canceled last year because of COVID. So the anticipation and the hype around this is going to be probably the biggest we've ever seen for an OSU Michigan game. Maybe not the biggest, maybe not bigger than the game where they were number 1 and number 2 back in 2006, or maybe even the last time they played as top 5 teams. But because of the fact that it didn't happen last year, that just makes all the hype even better, because you're so used to seeing a game like this happen every year. This is just an annual tradition. Saturday after Thanksgiving, you sit down at noon, watch OSU play Michigan. Didn't happen last year. It's been 2 years since they've played. So that's just going to make the hype for this game even bigger, which is great. I think that just helps the excitement of the city. That helps people who might not have been following OSU football as religiously get into it a little bit more, because the game didn't happen last year, which is going to make it a lot of fun. OSU going to fill in Michigan seats? Oh, for sure. Definitely. I mean, it's not that far for travel. Well, at least Northeast Ohio residents it is. Yeah, Northeast. It's a trip for sure. If you live in Cleveland, it's a trip to get to Ann Arbor. It's a 3-hour drive from here to Ann Arbor. If you live in Cincy, it's also a bit of a trip to get to the big house. So we've done that drive before. We've driven to Ann Arbor. It's 3 hours, and the drive's pretty easy. You know, it's not too difficult. You don't have to drive through any crazy ranges and crazy roads. It's a pretty straightforward drive to get to Ann Arbor from Columbus, at least. I don't know what it's like for Cincy or Cleveland, but it's going to be exciting. And fans are going to be even more excited because the Buckeyes sent a message today. And it's like, yo, we're really good. We just destroyed the Spartans. We're going to come to your house and keep it and destroy you, Wolverines. Not sure how took a cue from Monty Python's Holy Grail. They ran away. Yeah, this is going to be a tough game, though. Michigan's a good football team, so they gotta go in there the same way they went in today. Let's try and put the pedal to the metal. Michigan's defense is better than Michigan State's, so it's going to be a tougher game for sure. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see if it's competitive. If it's not competitive and it's an easy route, then it's like great. Big Ten championship. Ohio State fans, no M's for now until after 3:30 next week. Hope we play that good next week. Oh, you hope OSU plays that good every week. That's one of the best games we've ever seen from Ohio State. It was an unbelievable performance. Best half of football I've ever seen the Buckeyes play in my life. When you're up 49, 42, nothing at the break. Oh, yeah. Imagine that. Imagine hearing OHIO in the big house next Saturday. That'll be fun. This city will be stopped on Saturday afternoon to watch that game. And then the hope is they win, and then they go to Indianapolis and play in the Big Ten championship, which let's get a sense of the Big Ten West. I want to see what's going on over there. So if we look at our little statistical thingy-mabobby. So yeah, the Big Ten West is between Wisconsin and Iowa, most likely. Iowa is winning right now. Wisconsin is tied with Nebraska. So if both teams win, who are they playing in week 13? Iowa's playing Nebraska, and Wisconsin's playing Minnesota. Ooh, okay. So if Wisconsin and Iowa continue to win out, it will be OSU versus Wisconsin again. They always play each other in the Big Ten championship, it feels like. It'd be nice to see Iowa make it just for a little bit of a different flavor, but OSU, Wisconsin, that's like the Big Ten championship. I mean, how many times have they played in the Big Ten championship game? Feels like at least like 4 or 5 times since the Big Ten championship game started. So yeah, OSU has won the last 4 Big Ten championships. They have played Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship 3 times. The 59-0 win in 2014, the 27-21 win in 2017, and the 34-21 win in 2019 with Turf Guy. Ohio State's 5-1 in Big Ten championships. Wisconsin is 2-4. Michigan State, surprisingly, is the only other Big Ten team with a winning record in Big Ten championships at 2-1. And Penn State, one of 4 teams to win the Big Ten championship game since it started in 2011. And no team from the West Division has ever won the Big Ten championship. It's only been the East Division. And not to mention that, how many Ohio State quarterbacks have won the MVP? 3. Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, Cardell Jones, J.K. Dobbins won an MVP. Trey Sermon won the MVP for breaking the rushing record against Northwestern in last year's game. That was a fun game when Trey Sermon just went absolutely bonkers and ran for like 3,000 yards. Incredible. But that is in 2 weeks. Next week, it's all about Michigan and whether or not Ohio State can get that dub. We'll see if they can get that dub. It'll be interesting to see. But want to hear from y'all, the chat, about what you thought. Any other thoughts about the game? Yeah, beat the hell out of them. We'll see if they do. If anyone's got any questions about anything, any other thoughts about the game, any other hype stuff that y'all want to talk about, for sure. Because once again, another week where Ohio State just wipes the floor with somebody, and analysis is not really needed overly for a game like this where they win by 49. Which of that team up north players will untie a shoe in another classless act? Who knows? Untying someone's shoe. That's a pretty good second grade trick. Second graders really like untying people's shoe. The classic one is when you tie the shoes together, but don't bully. Don't bully people. Love and Wilson need to break 1,000 yards next week to go with JSN. Yeah, I don't know how many more yards they need to get to 1,000, but if OSU were to have 3 1,000-yard wide receivers, best receiving core in OSU history. No doubt it will be the best receiving core in OSU history. I think they already are. So, excuse me. Let's see some of the other scores. So, yeah, Notre Dame is up 45-0 against Georgia Tech. Just don't let the Irish get into the playoff, please. Bama's up 3-0. All right, Arkansas is giving them a run for their money. Michigan's up 7-0 against Maryland. Wowee. Pitt is losing to UVA. Lovely. Cincy's up 14-0. All right, way to go, Cincy. Any other crazy results? The fact that Clemson beat Wake Forest, good for them. Nice to see Clemson going to win. Oklahoma bounces back with a win over Iowa State. But that Oregon game tonight is going to be really fun. That's going to be a really good game. Wilson 4 touchdowns, maybe. Can our offense outscore TTUN if our defense plays badly? I think so. With the way the offense is playing and how efficient CJ Stroud has been throwing the football, and how the receivers are just finding ways to get open no matter who's covering them. Granted, Michigan State's pass defense is not very good, statistically speaking. But I think Ohio State can outscore Michigan if it turns into a shootout and the defenses are just not bringing it to the table. OSU's offense is better than Michigan's. I think CJ Stroud can go off for some big throws. How the heck are all these teams going to fill head coaching vacancies this year? I don't know. We're going to have to find coaches. Maybe one of you guys applies for the job. Hell, you want to be a head coach college football, just go ahead and do it. I still would love to see a simulation college football video game made where you don't actually play. So there's a famous video game called Football Manager, which is like being a soccer manager, but have that. It's like making all the financial decisions, recruiting players, et cetera, but make that for college football. That would be so much fun. I think games like that do exist, but they're not nearly as advanced. But that would be really cool. Where you can just pick some random school a la NCAA football. You just manage the games and pick plays and whatnot rather than actually physically playing them. That would be fun. There's an idea there. If any of y'all make games and are coders, you should send that idea over. Maybe make a game. Good news is Notre Dame would be left out if they and Cincy both went out. We won't have to watch them or Oklahoma in the playoffs this year. I don't think we're going to see Oklahoma in the playoffs this year, but I think there is a way for Notre Dame to get in. It would require Cincinnati to lose, and that's it. It basically requires Cincinnati to lose a game and the committee to see Alabama maybe with 2 losses and think, oh, maybe they're not so good. Oh, maybe we're not going to put Alabama in the playoffs this year. So that might be the way that Notre Dame swarms its way into the top 4. Has Alabama missed a playoff? I think they've missed a playoff, one time, if I'm not mistaken. Alabama. Yeah, Alabama's missed one playoff. What was their record that year? They missed the playoff. And this was obviously the playoff that LSU won. And OSU lost to Clemson. We don't speak of that game. Great officiating in that one. That was not an interception. Where's Alabama's record? Alabama went 11-2. Okay, so they did knock out a 2-loss Alabama team who lost to LSU in an amazing game, and then they lost to Auburn in a 3-point thriller. So maybe they don't keep a 2-loss Alabama team in there. Maybe. Have to see. The fact that Bama's made every playoff, though, is just sickening. It's just, ugh. Every playoff has consisted of one of Alabama or Clemson. And then you sneak in either Oklahoma or Ohio State in there. But the Big Ten, far and away, the most up and down playoff performances in history. First playoff, OSU plays its way in as a 4 seed. They win the whole thing. Next year, Michigan State makes it. They get shut out by Bama. Next year, Ohio State makes it back. They get shut out by Clemson. The year after that, no Big Ten team makes it. The year after that, no Big Ten team makes it. The year after that, Ohio State makes it, loses to Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. And then the year after that, Ohio State makes it with a 6-0 record and then gets killed by Alabama in the final. The fact that OSU is legit when they can win 6 games and still make the playoff. Bama beats Georgia thanks to Ohio State's receiver Williams. They got. If Bama beats Georgia, then Bama and Georgia both make it. That's the thing. I think there's a legitimate claim to make that if Alabama were to beat Georgia in the SEC title game, then both teams would make the playoff. I do feel bad for Cincinnati, Jay. Absolutely. It sucks that Cincinnati is not getting the respect and not getting the opportunity as an undefeated team. It just brings up the classic college football debate. These people are just making decisions. Teams are not earning their way through a point system or through just records, BCS, whatever. Humans decide. And it's the only sport where it exists in this kind of way, where humans literally decide only 4 teams that have an opportunity to win a national championship. At least in basketball, you get 68 teams that have a shot. And in every other college sport, it's like that too. This is the only college sport where you have so few playoff teams, and that's it. And you're bound to leave other teams out. I believe most top 25 losses this year than ever before. Maybe. I don't know if it beats 2007. Most AP top 25 losses in a college football season. Let's see. Oh, great. They don't give me that statistic. I still would think 2007 has the most. That'd take a long time to count. But this year, there's been quite a few. It's been good. It's been nice to have a college football season with a little bit more intrigue. Granted, we're still going to get sort of the suspected teams, it seems, into the playoff, mainly Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State specifically. But the fact that Clemson started losing games early in the season and they were knocked out of the picture, that made for a little bit more intrigue and made things interesting, which was good. Plus the fact that Ohio State lost early in the season, that really made things interesting because then it's like, well, what does OSU have to do to get in? Well, they just have to keep winning. If Oregon loses, there's a chance. If Oregon loses, then Cincinnati has a better chance because then the committee can be like, well, we'll keep Alabama in, but now we got to put another team in. I don't think we're going to put a 2-loss Michigan or Michigan State team in. I don't know if we want to put Notre Dame in. We can't put Notre Dame in because Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. Cincinnati's in. And then Cincinnati would be the 4 seed and play Georgia, and then Alabama would play OSU. Less is more. See, and that's fine, Troy, if you think that. I get that perspective because then you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the best teams playing each other. And I'm okay with less is more in that regard. But if you're going to have less is more, you need to find an even system to rank the teams so that there's no insane debate about who gets in. Because every year there's always some kind of team or two that gets left out, whether it be through SEC bias or records and opponent schedule, whatever. So if they found a way to have a 4-team playoff, but it was more fair in regards to some kind of a rankings or point system where it wasn't just a committee picking the teams and it had a merit based off of footballing statistics, strength of schedule, et cetera, then I'd be okay with less is more. But also, I really like watching football, and I like seeing a lot of different games and like seeing Cinderella stories pan out. So that's why I like more teams. I like 12-team playoff. I'd love to have it. Michigan's playing Maryland. It's almost second quarter. OSU had 44 Maryland at halftime. Yeah, no, OSU's offense is better than every offense in college football. There's no doubt in my mind about that. No doubt in my mind. You can't say any offense is better than OSU's. Like, I think there's some team statistics here that we can take a look at in college football. If I go to team stats, yeah, Ohio State leads the nation in yards per game at 550. 550. The best passing team in college football is Western Kentucky. The best rushing team in college football is Air Force, but Ohio State has the most yards per game of any team. Best defense is Georgia. Georgia's allowing 7.6 points per game. They're a full touchdown ahead of Wisconsin's defense for the best defense in college football. Wisconsin, though, gives up the least yards per game at 216. Georgia's at 247. And then the most sacks is the Marshall Thundering Herd. Who's closest to OSU in offense? Pitt, Ole Miss, Western Kentucky, and Virginia. Alabama's at 484 yards a game. But, yeah, OSU's the best offense. No question in my mind. Rest of Wisconsin tied. Okay. My reasoning is college football every week matters. You lose, you hurt your chance. The whole year means something. Start putting in 8, 12, or 16 teams. Regular season means nothing. See, I don't think that. I think because of the fact that you add more teams, that gives meaning to some of all these other teams. You add meaning to more teams with a bigger playoff, because then the likes of Cincinnati, SMU, teams in outside the Power 5, they have a real reason to play, because if they play well, they can get into a playoff and maybe win a national championship. So I think it adds more worthwhile regular season games because then it gets really competitive. But yes, in regards to the Power 5, the regular season would mean just a little bit less. But I think that's why you have to find a fair system of putting the teams in. Conference champions all make it, or you get all Power 5 conference champions. You get maybe a couple of at-large Power 5 teams, and then you put some non-Power 5s. But Troy, if you think about it in this way, 12 teams in a playoff for 100 or so teams is still so exclusive. You think about college basketball, 68 teams get into that tournament out of like 200 or 300 schools. That makes it, yes, it's a lot of teams, but it's still really exclusive. It still gives the regular season a ton of meaning. Whereas you look at the professional sports playoff landscape, that's why the regular season means less. In the NBA, 16 of the 30 teams make the playoffs. Why? In the NHL, 16 of the 32 teams make the playoffs. That's 50%. In the NFL, now 14 of the 32 make the playoffs, so you're closing in on 50%. Baseball's regular season, despite the amount of games, the regular season means more in baseball because there's only 10 playoff spots for 30 teams. So in that regard, for the amount of teams there are, you could argue that the regular season still means plenty when you're only picking 12 out of 200 or so FBS schools. That's why the NBA and the NHL regular season just don't seem to have nearly as much meaning, because you look at the NBA, you could have a 35-37 win Cavaliers team get the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference and then play in the playoffs. Whereas in college football, you can't make the playoff. Even in a 12-team format, you can't make the playoff if you have 3 losses. Unless you didn't have 12 teams that had 2 or less losses. So there's an argument to be made for both, but I like more games, and I also like giving more teams a chance, especially if they can prove they deserve it. And part of the reasoning why the playoff should be expanded, in my eyes, is because of the fact that we've seen the flaws of the 4-team playoff system. And it doesn't help when, historically speaking, the 4-team college football playoff has one, not produced a lot of underdog stories, which granted is not really the measuring stick for an expanded playoff, but mainly blowouts. I'll get to the chat in a second. I want to look up this for a second. The fact that so many college football games have finished in blowouts shows that it needs a rebirth, not to mention the amount of the same teams making it. Look at the blowouts in the college football playoff. Oregon over Florida State. Clemson over Oklahoma, 20 points. Not really a blowout, but still wasn't a competitive game. Alabama shutting out Michigan State by 38. Clemson shutting out Ohio State. Alabama beating Clemson 24-6. Clemson beating Notre Dame 30-3. LSU scoring 63 points on Oklahoma. Alabama beating Notre Dame 31-14 wasn't even close. And then OSU smashing Clemson. And then you look at the national championships. First couple of years, the national championships, really exciting. The first 4 national championships were great, but then we had Clemson crush Bama, LSU crush Clemson, and Alabama crush OSU. So OSU go to number 3 after putting up 7 TDs on the committee's number 17 by halftime. I think, Travis, they should. But if Oregon beats Utah, I wouldn't be surprised to keep Oregon above OSU. But I think based off of the way they're playing, OSU should be number 3. Yeah, finish outside the top 5 is a bad season. Yeah, and there's different sports teams and different leagues that are going to have spoiled seasons. Like, I'm a Yankees fan for baseball. For me, not winning the World Series is a bad season. And the Yankees haven't won a World Series in 11 years. So every year has been a bad season for the last 11 years. Or below 500 team make the NFL playoff. I don't like the watered down world. We all don't need a trophy. Only the best do. You're right. At least they only give one team the trophy. So making a playoff is not a measure of success. It's more of a measure of success in college football because there are so many teams. But it's hard to level that success in college football as well when the teams are not playing each other week in and week out. They're all playing different schedules. It's easier to measure playoff success and say that making the playoffs in the NFL is a successful season because a lot of these teams play each other during the year because there's less teams. So it's interesting. It's an interesting debate, but I would be totally fine with 12 teams. I think it's going to happen. Hopefully we get some more exciting games because the last 3 national championships have all been blowouts. The semifinals have all been blowouts recently. There hasn't been much excitement. So, I want to see more excitement, and I think more teams gives us an opportunity for that. And I think that's where I'm going to call it. And if you didn't hear at the beginning of the stream, this is going to be my last post-game show here with the Voice of College Football. I'm unable to do the Michigan game next week. I got some other stuff I got to work on during that Saturday afternoon, so I won't be able to do the post-game for the game, unfortunately. But I just wanted to say a big thank you to Mark. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a ton of fun talking with you guys, and all the post-game shows that we've done here over the past 4 months have been a blast. It's been a great OSU football season. We'll see if it gets even better. If they beat Michigan, win the Big Ten championship, maybe win the Natty. See how that does. So 16-team playoff will bring more parity. Yeah. I know we all like Cincy as an underdog team. Seriously, though, do your eyes tell you that they can hang with the big boys? Yeah, I don't know. But I'd like to at least give him a shot. Yearly similar to the 2014 team that won the national title. Big win for OSU, Noah. Yeah. But I enjoyed meeting you guys. I enjoyed chatting with you throughout the course of the season. Subscribe to this channel. Mark is going to keep up a ton of content for the OSU channel, especially if they make the playoff. Go follow the Voice of College Football channel. Mark is a great guy, the best college football channel on YouTube. A lot of insight, a lot of good guests, and he's got an amazing viewpoint of the sport and really good analysis. Y'all should go follow that channel. Follow this channel if you're an OSU fan. If you want to continue to see what I'm up to, you can follow my Twitter at obenatar512, which I'll type it in the chat. If y'all are on Twitter and want to see what I'm tweeting about, I tweet about all kinds of different sports, soccer, football, et cetera, et cetera. You're good, Troy, man. It's fine. I'm all good with people taking up time in the chat. I prefer reading the chat than just sitting here blabbing about. So thank you guys for a great year. It was a lot of fun. Go Buckeyes. We'll see what happens next week. And yeah, nice to chat with you guys. Hope to maybe see you again someday. We'll see, though. But if not, bye-bye.